What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another NBA Rundown brought to you courtesy of Run Pure Sports and Run Pure Bets. I'm joined today by AP, and we had a great Friday last week, so we're looking to do it again. AP, NBA's been treating me really well. How's it been doing for you?
Yeah, it's been treating me really well, and yeah, Friday was awesome. We had a member who listened to the show, and he told me he bet every play we talked about, and so it was like an 8-game parlay off of a free play, and he hit it. So like we got big shoes to fill from last week. But I will say, so like betting wise, I've had a slower start, and honestly, I haven't put any bets in. I think for 3 or 4 days. I'm an overs guy. One problem that I'm seeing, and so I wanted to slow down and make note of what's going on in the league. The foul situation. So I do think that's impacting certain games overs. I mean, if you think about getting to the free throw line, that's points while the clock is stopped. So, obviously they're going to help an overs bet there. And so the other thing, too, is I'm trying to get a better read on the pace of some of these teams. We've seen some changes for teams that I typically follow pretty closely. And then, the other thing is DFS has been on absolute fire. So that's kind of my focus.
The mic issue jumped back in there. I don't know what happened.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to jump back in, and I'll just carry it for a couple seconds? Yeah, okay. So he's going to work on that. We'll get him back in. You get a little peek behind where my thing is, a nice little A's cup. But anyways, yeah, so we've been doing pretty well. I'm pretty excited about the card tonight. We'll try and get AP back on and maybe an appearance from Tyler as well. I know Tyler's busy prepping for the NFL show that we will do right after this. Let us try this again. Check. Is it working now?
Oh, it's my AirPods now. So is that better?
Much better.
Okay,
So,
good.
apologies to the listeners. Thanks for sticking
mic.
with us. Yeah, thanks for sticking with us.
It doesn't like StreamYard sometimes, man. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, at least we got it fixed and we can do the show, because I'll tell you what, since the end of last night, I've been excited to talk to you about tonight's games. The first game here is the Toronto Raptors laying 8 points on a lowly total of 206 against the Orlando Magic. Orlando has not done very well so far this year. Of course, they got the one win over the Knicks, and I've always said that I think that they overlooked them in that game after they beat them so soundly the first game. I'm trying to check. I'm trying to see if Toronto's even going over 100 points yet this year. Yeah, they got 111, and they got 104. But, the offense has been terrible for the Orlando Magic. What are your thoughts on this game? I like Toronto, even though laying 8. I think these Magic spreads, they're going to settle in around 12 or 13. Still think it's just too low, unless they're at home against another bad team. And Toronto's offense hasn't been very good either, so maybe that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm off this game betting wise. The spread there looks a little like I don't know. I mean, Cole Anthony, he's been playing pretty well. He's been helping to keep them in games. Jalen Suggs, kind of a slow start to the year. Usage is good. The guy I'm looking at in fantasy in the DFS streets, just because, double-digit shot attempts. He's playing upwards of 35 minutes in some of these games. Let me check the injuries, see if we're going to get – I think it's just the usual guys still out. Each one more, Okiki. And so we should have somewhat of a tight rotation. But, man, the spread, like whenever we get – a total like 206 in an NBA game, I'm never betting unders there. Like I would lean overs just because, Terrence Ross could come off the bench. He could hit some shots and get things going. And then, maybe Freddie VanVleet gets going offensively as well. So it's a stay away betting wise for me, but DFS wise, there are some interesting plays here. Like you have condensed rotations on the Raptors side. You have what should be somewhat of a condensed rotation on the Magic side. Pricing feels a little light. So I do think we see a few of these guys hit value. Gary Trent, very cheap play. He looks pretty good. Jalen Suggs. Terrence Ross as a tournament play. Van Vliet feels a little high. I want to spend up elsewhere on this slate. And then, OG or Scotty Barnes. I mean, both guys have been playing pretty well.
All right. Yeah, Scotty Barnes is one that always interests me. Because he just has so much potential. You just feel like he's just going to continue to go up. as the season goes along. Obviously, great worker, right? All the questions about his jump shot in the offseason, he comes in and it's passable already. And if he can do that just in one offseason, imagine what he's going to be able to 2 or 3 years if he continues working as hard as he has been so far. So Scotty Barnes definitely always intriguing when you're filling out that lineup. The Charlotte Hornets are down to plus 4.5. I don't know what that opened at, so maybe that's no, it was plus 5. So yeah, they took a little bit of money. Miami Heat minus 4.5, total of 222. I think this is a fascinating game. You have Charlotte's new high-powered offense going against what I would consider, stats aside, I think the Miami defense is the best defense in the NBA right now. I think Milwaukee can give them a run for their money. Those are the two best defensive teams, so that's what we have there. But then on the other side, Charlotte has the highest efficiency rating on offense so far this season. And I don't know if you noticed this as well, but once again, last night, Lamelo Ball not in the closing lineup. Maybe talk to your thoughts about the minus 4.5, and then did you see that with Lamelo, and are you affecting daily fantasy because of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a risk for sure. He hasn't closed in 2 games now. He often gets into foul trouble, and their coach is not, hesitant to pull him at all if he's making mistakes. It's an easy fade though in LaMelo in this matchup against the Heat, the best defensive team that I think in the league by far. One thing pace does. So you mentioned pace. The Hornets are playing at a much faster pace. A lot of that is due to LaMelo Ball pushing things. It gives a bump to these Heat guys. Another thing that we need to keep an eye out here is I believe Bam Adebayo was a midday downgrade to questionable. Usually when you see that, that's usually not a good sign when you see that. And I like to plan for the situation of him being out. And it becomes interesting fantasy-wise. We get what I would consider would be a free square. If Bam is out, Dwayne Dedmon, 3.5K. Dedmon's always been like a fantasy point per minute beast. He would obviously get, maybe 25 minutes. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like they could do a few things here. They could go small. You get Tyler Hero, you got Markieff Morris. But I would feel good about Dedmon getting like 25 minutes and at 3.5K. He could easily smash that price tag there in the center role. Jimmy Butler, another guy. This guy's been unreal. Like 52 and 55 his last 2 games against Orlando and then against the Nets. I was talking to Hoop actually. We were going back and forth on the slate where Miami was playing the Nets. I'm like, we got to look at Jimmy a little bit closer here. He always plays up in these big games. Now, if you're anyone that listens to like NBA radio or just ESPN or sports news, people are high on the Charlotte team. Everyone's talking about their offensive efficiency. So, like, if I'm Jimmy Butler, this is another spot where you got to think, he's going to play up. And then the other thing too is he'll see a bump if Bam is out. More of the offensive load is going to be put on his shoulders. So for me, the way I'm playing it, I'm not betting this game. I don't have a strong read on the side either. But I'm fading the Hornets guys. I have interest in the Heat guys here.
Yeah, so an interesting conundrum here. Before the news came, I thought that Bam was going to be a great play today, attacking the weak Charlotte interior defense. Now, even if he does play because of the questionable tag, did you rule him out even in a situation where you might have considered him before? Or can you go ahead and take a punt?
Yeah, I mean, if he plays, I assume that he's going to get his full allotment of minutes. So, if he gets ruled in, unless there was a different reason for him being questionable, more, something to where he's a little bit hobbled, then I might kind of second guess it. But no, if he gets ruled in, I'm going to assume that questionable tag never happened. The thing that's going to happen is he'll just lower his ownership. But if a player's playing, it means that they're going to, they're going to be out there trying their best. That's kind of how I always read the situation.
Yeah, because doesn't that seem like a pretty good matchup for him there, going against those Charlotte bigs?
Yeah, not a bad matchup at all. But I still think Jimmy's the guy. Tyler Hero too. 6'6" though, the price is getting up there. So a little bit tougher to pay for him.
Yeah, he was like 5-1 to start the season, right? He's at like a $1,500 bump there on DraftKings. So that shows you how well he's doing it. If you're holding a Tyler Hero, Sixth Man of the Year or Most Improved Player ticket, you're feeling pretty happy about what you've seen 5 games into the season. The Indiana Pacers plus 8.5. Heading to Brooklyn to take on the Nets, who are, they're working their way through some issues here. They're missing Kyrie Irving. And I've talked with Hoop and Mangone and JSU about this on the show earlier, and I'll tell you just in case you missed it. Lots being made on Harden's inability to draw the fouls, but I just don't think he looks that fast anymore. I think the reason his production is down is more from the fact that he's not beating his man off the dribble anymore. I think defenders can play him a little closer as they're a little less worried about getting beat to the rim, and that's causing his three-point effectiveness to go down. So that's my feelings on James Harden. I'm staying away from him in fantasy, and I'm fine fading him because it seems like every day he gets, hey, I'm going to try and buy low on him, right? But I just don't think the low is there yet. So what are your thoughts on this game? I like Indiana plus 8.5, and then, of course, go over this Nets roster because I think it's quite interesting that they don't look that good yet, but you can see the potential for it to come together and for them to still win the East.
Yeah, I mean, the Nets a team with a really slow start. Harden's impacted by a couple things. The new foul rule, that's been one of the things that's affected not only Harden, but guys like Dame Lillard, a bunch of stars out there. With Harden, I've read a few things. One, he's a guy that likes to play his way back into shape at times. Two, the other thing that I saw and read, during the offseason, he was instructed to rest that hamstring up, to just make sure he came in fully good to go. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's just, the explosiveness issue that you're seeing. It's just he's not fully healthy yet. My take on Harden, it's James Harden. He's one of the best offensive players in the league and has been so for quite some time. I think he gets it going. I think eventually he gets it going. I mean, I don't see him just having like a bad season. Especially with Kyrie off the court. It's like we've already forgotten that Kyrie is gone. And so now, like what I like, I look at this Indiana Pacers game, I think this is the perfect get-right spot for James Harden. His price is very fair. We've seen the Pacers play very little defense to start the season, something that, Carlisle is trying hard to fix. A pretty good coach all around, obviously. But I like Harden here. I like KD. I think both are good plays. Bruce Brown is another guy. So he's finally back to kind of that starting role. They didn't play him the first 2 games, gave him 27 minutes, 30 minutes, then 34. I mean, this is like they're not a good defensive team at all right now, but he's their best defender. Him and probably Kevin Durant. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that.
I definitely do.
Yeah. And so, I mean, both those guys just, a lot of length. And so, I mean, Bruce Brown, they're probably, Karis LeVert. I mean, how many minutes do you think he's going to get tonight? Do you have any guess on that?
25 to 30. And I'd go closer to the 25 side, maybe 25 to 27 now that I think about it. I wouldn't want to run him out there too long just when you're getting him back. Right. And you're also thin, right? Warren is going to be out through, I think, at least the next month. And Brogdon's going to miss tonight, right?
Yeah, they're resting Brogdon. So for me, like, I want to bet the over here, but man, I'm not as sold on Pacers games overs now with Carlisle in there. Like he is, we saw it with the Mavs. Like we saw it, just it worries me. So I am off of this game betting wise. If I had a lean, it would be the Pacers, but I got a little like this is such a spot for the Nets to just come out and pound them. And so that would be my only concern. Like I think KD has a big game. I think Harden gets it going. I think they get even like Joe Harris more involved, and then this is a perfect spot for Patty Mills to come in and be that 6th man and have a decent game. So, and then on the Pacers side, I think Sabonis is for them to keep this close. He's going to need to have a monster game, and I love him in DFS formats. 9.4 is too cheap. I think he gets you 50 plus tonight, and I feel very confident about that.
Yeah, I was talking to Steve Boynton on the live show last night because he watches a lot more college basketball than me, right? He's a great college basketball capper. And we were talking about Duarte, and I was saying so far, he hasn't really been creating. He's been relying on his teammates. And he was telling me, hey, don't be fooled. He played point guard in college. He can create, and he might be asked to do that. Maybe an uptick in usage for Duarte, who's been, pretty efficient so far, sitting at 5,500 tonight. Maybe with some increased usage, will we go there? Or do you think that's going to be a little popular and overplayed?
Yeah, I mean, they got Brad Wanamaker, too. He played 19 minutes last game. And then TJ McConnell is a guy that, they always rely on him and trust him at the point guard position. The one thing that McConnell, he's a guy that loves to push the pace, too. He's a fast-paced player. So, if I was, running good on the betting streets right now, I'd be betting this over. I think the number is pretty good. Do you have a read on the total here, spread?
I like the over too. I think this is going to be a fast-paced game. I think both teams are going to be really eager to get out. I both expect them to shoot the ball well. I mean, I don't really rate either of these defenses highly. I think you can point to good individual defenders on each team. But so far, the cohesiveness on the team defense, the only way it doesn't get there to me is either incredibly poor shooting, that's just way lower than what we'd expect, like both teams 30% from three, or just maybe the pace. And that's why, it's tough because only 5 games in, it's really hard to get a feel for pace because we don't know how much of it was the individual matchup and how much of it is the team is going to play there. But
Duarte is a pretty good play too. I think a rule I might make tonight is I want one of these guys, TJ McConnell or Duarte, I think in my lineup with Sabonis there off of LeVert. And so what I might do is have a rule in there where I'm playing TJM or Duarte, and then also a rule where I'm playing Sabonis or Turner. I think I don't want them all in the same lineup. I think one of them goes off. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely like that idea. I had actually just, I like to just make them while we're going along during the show. And Bruce Brown, Sabonis, and I want to try and find a way to put KD in there on the other side. I think he's going to have a huge night. He might be the top scorer on the slate tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. Luka carried a huge load last night. I'll be interested to see how well he does tonight. But I do think Durant's got a chance right there. So, I like the Pacers here. Did you have a call on the side?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I just kind of get. The Nets they're gonna get it right. They are. These guys are too good. KD's too good. Even James Harden's too good. And it feels a little trappy here to me. All
right. Sounds like a plan. So yeah, I like the Pacers. I lean towards the over too, but I did not bet that. The next game is so this is gonna be fun for me. It's my hometown team, the Sacramento Kings. They head to New Orleans to take on the Pelicans. Kings took the early money. Then the Pelicans stormed back, and now it's kind of settled where it started. The Kings are now -1.5. A lot of the guys that I network with and talk to about betting these games, they all like the Pelicans. I'm not ready to believe in this Pelicans team. And this isn't me saying that the Kings are good. In making this play against the Pelicans, I'm just saying that this team is bad. I really think they struggle without Zion to score, and I'm just not really impressed with them defensively. I mean, they're just too reliant on Devontae Graham. I know he's a good player, and I definitely think he's a great fantasy option, but I don't know how much I trust him. What do you think here? Am I overrating my hometown team here, or are you down on the fade the Pelicans train too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little down on the Pelicans too. I just, I like the Kings here. I think when you look at the dynamics of this game, I do think what would worry me is I think the Pelicans are going to get a lot of easy buckets in the paint. I think they're going to have a strong game rebounding wise. Jonas Valanciunas, he's going to be an absolute beast. I mean, the Kings right now are giving up the most fantasy points by far to opposing centers. So Joe Val is a guy I'm targeting in DFS formats. I'm off the backcourt, though, on the Pel side. I do think Halliburton, Davion Mitchell, two guys that could slow Devontae Graham and Nickeil Alexander-Walker down a little bit. And then you got Harrison Barnes, a trusted defender as well that they can throw on Brandon Ingram. So I think these two teams, my one concern is the Pelicans actually kind of match up decent to them. I think there's an edge. So there's an edge in the front court with Joval over Holmes. He has size there. I think he's going to be able to kind of punish him. But then I think the edge on the Kings side is the backcourt. So for me, it's a toss-up. And I know this is a betting show, but, man, I think the number here on the total is good too.
There's nothing wrong with that. If these books were putting up lines that were just consistently wrong, that were easy for us to pick off, right? Everybody would be doing
exactly.
So, I always, you know what I do? If I have 5 or 6 plays on an 8-game card like tonight, I go and review my numbers because that shouldn't be right. I know when my model's dialed in, when it's getting pretty close to the numbers almost every time, because these odds makers are good at what they do. And I see no problem staying away from this, especially this early in the season. I went full bore this year because I spent so much time at prep, but when I wasn't doing this full time, I didn't even bet this week. I would start like 10 games in when I had a full-time job as well, because it's really tough. We don't want to take too much from the small sample size. So I have no problem with you staying away. But I got to ask you this. If this was last season, right, we would have smashed the over when these two teams were playing, right? A couple things are leading to these games being less scoring, and the books have already adjusted. We already talked about the fouls, and I almost think it's being overdrawn out. 3-point percentages is down a little more as well. I'm positive. I think the idea is these teams are just defending the 3 better. They're just not getting wide open looks anymore. For all your life, they were taught to defend the paint. Now we're getting to like 3 or 4 years of this run people off the 3-point line. There basically was the adjustment to how the Warriors played basketball, and everybody copying that. So these scores are down. This would have been an over before, and I'm sure it tempted you at 220.5 because it tempted me. What do you think about the total, AP?
Yeah, I mean, it's one again where I'm like, I just don't trust it. Devontae Graham has been like, an over can hit. Like I like Nickeil Alexander-Walker for overs, but Devontae Graham's a guy that likes to slow things down, and I don't think that's the route here against the likes of this Kings backcourt. So I'm really torn. I would lean. I mean, I'm off the total here completely. I don't even have a lean on this, but for fantasy purposes, Joe Val, I think he has a monster game. I think he has a really big game.
Yeah, I just throw him in the little lineup that I'm making as we talk our way through these games, and it's just fun to see where it lands at the end. And then when we're going through the core, I have a little cheat sheet of all the good players that we have mentioned. The next game that we have, the Los Angeles Clippers grabbing 3 against a Portland Trailblazers team that they beat by 30 on Monday night. I think so. I know everybody loves talking about revenge, right? Mangone loves the revenge angle, I think, more than anyone over at Run Pure Sports. And normally I don't buy into it as much, especially off a regular, if you lose in January to a team, in March, you're not thinking revenge. But this quick a turnaround, this early in the season, where we're taking so much more from these results, I do think there is something to be said for it. I like Portland to get right here and get back, but boy, this is a tough bet to make because we've seen these Trailblazers look pretty bad before. What do you think, AP? Am I crazy for taking the Blazers against a team that they lost by 32 on Monday?
No, I mean, that's the revenge point here, I think, is strong. That game, I watched that game closely because I had it was McCollum and Paul George were my last 2 guys in the lineup. Nice. that was creeping up, and now the blowout happened. I mean, Both guys were playing good. I mean, Paul George, he had 39 in 26 minutes. So if he plays a full allotment of there, he's getting there. And CJ McCollum had 37 and 32 minutes. So kind of right in line with what CJ McCollum typically does. I mean, I think this game could be really interesting. I think the Clippers they just got beat by the Cavs, right? That game was like ugly.
I mean, I think it was 92-79 off the top of my head, if I remember right. And I can't wait to talk about the Cavaliers with you a little later.
I know.
As we close this up. But I mean, the Clippers team been wildly inconsistent here so far this year. So you agree with me there on the side?
I like the Blazers. I think and I saw on Twitter Dame kind of chirping back at people giving him crap about how his slow start to the season.
Mm-hmm.
So at 9-3, I think Dame is set up to have a good night. Paul George,
Give me the day matchup versus Reggie Jackson, please. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. He had free looks. He couldn't make. He was 4 for 15. He was 0 from 8 from downtown. That's just and what I like to see is he started making some buckets against Memphis. He was 4 from 11, but he's still not shooting the ball really well. But he put up 43 fantasy points. He had 10 assists. So the numbers are trending in the right direction. I think Dame time is a fine tournament play tonight.
Wouldn't you think on this game, if you spend up in this game, you have a chance to really be under-owned? And I don't know about you. I'm just slumming in that little $15 tournament. I don't know how it is on the bigger tournament. People don't spend up for Paul George. And he puts numbers up. And I don't see him very high owned. Is that pretty do you feel the same way that Paul George kind of gets overlooked when we're doing these shows and making these lineups?
Yeah, he's in a tough range. And one of the problems is you have Kevin Durant, who's 10-3. So it's right there. I prefer KD over Paul George in a faster-paced matchup. And then you have Luka on the slate. You have, potentially Nikola Jokic. I mean, I know he's questionable, but there's just so many other ways to go. So, yeah, it's going to leave a guy like Paul George extremely under-owned tonight, and the matchup isn't bad. We've seen these games explode points-wise, so I do think he's an interesting tournament play. It's kind of a hammer if you think we have a nice game environment here where there's a lot of points and a lot of fantasy points to be had.
Yeah, we always talk about getting different, and Title does it the most. He really always is reminding me, hey, you don't want to have that perfect lineup and be sitting at the very top and share it with 7 different guys, right? When you do finally have the night where it all comes together, you want to be there by yourself. So that kind of just stood out to me. Like, let's say we make a solid core here of great value. You run it with the KD or the Luka or the whatever that we expect. But hey, if you're going to do more than one entry, maybe run one back with PG and Dame as your startups. And if this thing goes to OT, I think you'll be sitting there all by yourself at the top of the leaderboard. So yeah, I like the Blazers there. The total's 223. Once again, this is a game that I would have loved the over, but I'm so hesitant to get involved with totals here because I'm still figuring out why is the scoring down? Is it just the shooting? Is it going to get back up? Are the offenses just a little slow, or is just are these going to be the new numbers? Because let's be honest, it was getting kind of ridiculous, right? When you were getting on there towards the end of last year, right? All the totals that we were talking about were between like 233 and 241, right? So this seems more like the NBA that I know. I'm not really sure what to do with it. Did you have a thought on the total in this game?
Yeah, I have a lead on the over. If I had a bet the under over here, I like the over. Clippers are playing at a faster pace this season. They were ranked dead last in pace last season, and they're in the upper top half of pace. I know it's early; it's a small sample size, but you got to like that. And Reggie Jackson's a guy that needs to get going. Like, he needs to get going offensively to take some of the burden off of Paul George's shoulders. And he's taking a ton of shots. He took 20 shots in the same matchup just a few games ago. So in the DFS streets, he's another guy I'm looking at. Reggie Jackson. He's relatively cheap for his role. 6'1". Another guy to keep an eye on is Terrence Mann. He's been a key 6 guy, a really good producer when he gets going. He had a lot of success in this matchup as well. I think he's an interesting value play today.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised by the switch in pace, right? Because you think the Clippers last year, well, they had one of the best half-court creators in the NBA, so it made sense that they would, not need to push the ball. When you only now really, I mean, you can count Jackson as a creator too, right? So, but if you have just George and Jackson as your primary creators, you're going to try and move quickly. And use speed, quickness, and plays to your advantage to try and get the guys open look, because you can't just sit there and wait for a switch and just work one-on-one and towards the end of the shot clock. So I'm not surprised by the Clippers change in pace there, and that's why I was leaning towards the over as well, but really, really hesitant to get involved in these totals. Dallas Mavericks plus 1.5, heading to Denver minus 1.5, and AP, this will be the biggest news of the night. I don't think that unless you want to try and take Denver and just assume the line's going to move if Jokic is in, I don't see how you get involved in this game right now. And then it's one of the things when we're building a lineup right now, if we get that news, at 4 o'clock my time, 7 o'clock your time, or whatever, that Jokic is out, we're going to completely rebuild these lineups. So what are your thoughts? I mean, I guess I'm not even going to handicap this game because if Jokic was in, this number's wrong. So this number tells me they think he's going to sit. Wouldn't you agree, or do you think that that's the number? It's -1.5 to Denver right now. I would think that Denver would be -4 or -5 if Jokic was expected to play.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point there. I think he's truly questionable. I did not see the injury though, but anything with the knee. The other thing though with Jokic is like he's just a guy that doesn't sit very much. I mean, he's always like I can't remember the last time he's missed a game. So as far as betting goes on this game, I'm trying to look it up real quick. I tried to get a bet in early on this, but my buddy didn't text me back. I'm not I can't put them in myself. So I just said, I always message a buddy. Yeah, what this total open at? Wasn't it like closer to 220? I see it's all the way down to 215.5. Do you have any idea?
Let me go. I'll pull up the opener right now. Yeah, but
219. 219. We tried to hammer the under at 219. It was a number. It was a under bet I really liked. It's down to 215.5. Slow pace. I think we're going to see a slow pace here. And then with how much it came down to, that makes me even more worried about Jokic playing. So this is definitely a spot to keep an eye on. And I want to ask you, what do you think they do with the rotation here? Because when's the last time we've seen Jokic sit? I mean, who do you think gets the start?
I mean, it's 2019, right? He played all 82 games last year. So
it's just ridiculous.
All right, let me pull.
I mean, they're not putting like Bull in there. They're not. They got to go what, like JaMychal Green, or like do they? I'm looking at this roster trying to figure out what they would do. Maybe Jeff Green and then go small.
Yeah, I would say you'd have to do Jeff Green, right? You can't start Bull, can you?
No. Let me pull up one thing. Let me see what they did last game. He only played 15 minutes. So here's the starting lineup in the second half. It was Monty Morris, Michael Porter Jr., Will Barton, JaMychal Green, and Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then you got Gordon as a big four, so you haven't left Green out there on the island. I think that they're pretty interchangeable.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a small lineup there. Fortunately, I don't think that Dallas can punish that. Do you? I mean, when you're looking at Porzingis being out right now, I know that everybody in the winning lineup had a little bit of Maxi Kleber last night, right? And then they got Dwight Powell, but those aren't guys that you would really think are going to punish you in the middle.
No, not at all. But it is an easier matchup than for a guy like Maxi Kleber, who, I mean, man, what a game he had. Mm-hmm. He's usually the guy in those situations where Porzingis is out that become all the cash guys flock to him, and they steam his ownership way up, and then he busts. Mm-hmm. Last night, he was actually relatively low owned, like relative to where he should have been, and he just absolutely crushed. I mean, he had 6 blocks, a steal, 10 rebounds, and he made 12. Yeah, 12. He made 12 points. So, yeah, I mean, 3.2K. If Jokic is out, it becomes a better spot for a guy like Kleber. Yeah, I don't know, but who do you think gets like my like when I look at this fantasy wise, if Jokic is out, I'm bumping up Michael Porter Jr. They paid this guy a lot of money. He has yet to get going offensively. This, in my opinion, is the spot where he needs to like step up and be the guy on the team. Do you agree? Disagree? What do you think about MPJ?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be worth a look there, right? Only 6,500, and his problem right now is he's only shooting 35% from the field. But if you've watched him, you know that's going to have to improve. And I don't think he's a guy that's necessarily going to suffer from the increased attention, because when he's running well, he can beat anybody off the dribble. So, I like that too. I have a nice question for you, and this is about just general how do we approach things, right? So if you were monitoring the leaderboard last night, right, there was a lot of, at the top of this list, there's a lot of Maxi Kleber, a lot of Jaylen Brunson in there. The prices aren't that much higher. Do you go back to the well, or are you a little hesitant to go back to a guy right after a huge night where everybody rostered him and is probably pretty eager to get him back in there?
Yeah, I mean Brunson. I mean he's a guy like Brunson. It's just his role is different this year. Like he is a true six man, but he has been a spark, like a true spark off the bench. So I have no problem going back to him. His price actually went down on DraftKings to 4.8. What I do is I put in what I feel is a fair projection for him. And right now my projection is actually over kind of what I'm seeing in the industry. So like I'll put like let's just say the mean projection in the industry is like 27, which is kind of what I'm seeing. I got him at like 29. So I'm going to put him at 29. And I'm going to go throughout all the other games. I'm going to look at each game, all the matchups, and get my guys where I think they should be fantasy wise. And then I'm going to run it and see kind of how many builds he lands in out of a pretty large sample size. So that's my approach. So if he lands in one of the builds that I really like, then yeah, I'm going to play him. 4.8, if someone is between him and someone else in a 2v2, I'd probably lean him just because of the role that he has running the second unit.
Yeah, I mean, almost like, the old, Jamal Crawford and off the bench, right? Just score a bunch of points. And they need that because Luka's tired towards the end of these games, man. I'm going to be fading them, laying big points. Now, obviously, that was closer than it should be. So I had the Spurs last night, AP, and at one point, they were up 16-1, right? I think like 25-5 or something, right? So I'm thinking I got to cover, and I'm sitting there at the end of this game like I should not be sweating this cover, and it didn't necessarily happen last night. But boy, they really put a lot on him to carry that offense, and if they really want to have a chance, I mean, this is a team that's got to make moves. They need to get him some help because JSU, and I talked about it yesterday. I said if you take Luka off that team, that might be the worst roster in the NBA. Like they're like Magic Thunder level.
I would still put the Thunder up there.
Yeah, but I mean that's about how far they drop.
Yeah, with the new coach, like if Carlisle was still there, I would have faith that he'd be able to put something good together. But you got guys that would step up. Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith is a guy that's just an all-around good basketball player. Not like a sexy name at all, but Reggie Bullock's a guy that can play defense, can hit some threes every now and then. You got it's just a weird dynamic for a team. Here's my thing with Luka. We saw him late. He actually wasn't a very consistent fantasy producer game by game last season. He had low lows and he had some of the highest highs. And we saw his highs towards the end of the season. But the only way I really like Luka, and tell me what you think about this, but is if his buddy Jokic is playing tonight. I feel like those guys they got the Euro vibe going, kind of like, Jokic got the MVP last year. Luka has been a guy that has just the MVP is on his list. If they're both playing, I feel like their energy, they kind of gain some energy off of each other. And that's the only way I like Luka tonight in DFS formats. I just think at 11K, there are so many other better plays tonight on the slate. I
agree with you, and my main reason is he looked dog tired at the end of the game last night, and this is a back-to-back here, so I would just worry that either Kidd saw that too and dials back his minutes, or he's just too tired to get production in those minutes. Let's talk about
who didn't look tired?
Who?
Jaylen Bronson.
Yeah, I know.
Does that guy ever get tired? He's just up and down the court. I mean, him and TJ McConnell, I don't think – they just sprint up and down and just they're motors, man. They just get it going.
That's why they're so great off the bench too, because it almost forces the opposing coach to react and consider changing their lineups when you bring them in early. Because you got a guy that's already been putting 7 hard minutes in there, maybe getting pretty close to the time he wants to hit the bench, and then you have to deal with Jaylen Brunson. That can be a lot to handle. So that's one thing that Jay Kidd's done right as far as implementing Brunson well. But the rest of that team, man, I don't even know what he can do. I just don't think that the roster is that good. The Cleveland Cavaliers are plus 7.5 heading to Los Angeles. And I want to talk to you about both these teams, right? Because we have one team that's way above expectations and one team that's way below. I like the Cavaliers here to cover. I'm just not in on LA. Of course, we need this news for LeBron. And then if
give me the Cavs money line too. What do you think about that?
I don't mind it.
Plus
I don't
260 or I wasn't trying to interrupt you, but man,
no, that was pretty much
good defensively, right?
Yeah.
Aren't they good? Like, it's crazy.
Well, yeah, Evan Mobley's he's making an instant impact, and he's one of the few guys that I think that it can be fine right down in the middle, blocking shots, but he can switch onto the perimeter effortlessly. So, and Lauri Markkanen's actually playing pretty well too. Of course, we've always known that Jared Allen's good, but with that increased rim protection, and we saw this at the beginning of last year before they traded Drummond. I like to bet in the Cavaliers a lot before that trade. It makes Garland and Sexton's inefficiencies or inadequacies on the defensive end so much less apparent because they can cover up so many of those mistakes. So I like Cleveland to get it done here. What do you make of Los Angeles? Do you expect LeBron to play tonight? And everybody said it, but what do you think about how this team just isn't fitting together?
Yeah, so if I'm Cleveland and I'm looking at this, and let's just say LeBron plays, I think if you matchup wise, that would be one, like that's the only concern is probably LeBron for me, because Evan Mobley, he's a guy like really nice stretch four, ton of size. He can match up with a guard if they need to switch. Jared Allen, another guy with a lot of size. That makes it really tough in the paint. They're actually one team that I think they're giving up the least amount of fantasy points to opposing post bigs in the league, which is just something I look at. I think what I do if I'm the Cavs is I make the Lakers. I don't give them anything inside. I make them beat me by shooting threes, and I don't think that they have the firepower right now to do so unless Carmelo Anthony, unless Malik Monk are guys that come in and have an instant impact. We saw Carmelo do it once. I think that was against the Grizzlies. So he came in, he made a nice impact. Outside of that, like Russ Westbrook, you don't care if he's shooting threes. Like that's what you want. You leave him open, let him shoot the threes. You got Allen, Mobley, and Markkanen, all guys that are over 6'10". You got a huge rebounding. Not a massive rebounding advantage, because the Lakers are pretty big too. So I would lean under here, and I also like the Cavs side here. I think Colin Sexton is a guy that's becoming a really, really good defensively. And then you got Mobley and Allen. Fantasy-wise, though, opposing guards have absolutely torched this Lakers team. Like, they are so bad defensively against opposing guards. I actually have a lot of interest in Colin Sexton. I know the one concern is you got Ricky Rubio, you got Darius Garland, and Sexton. That's a lot of mouths to feed, but at 6'5", we know if Sexton in these matchups, we saw it a few times last year. When you get, when you're playing guy like stars to these players like LeBron, and you get in these matchups, he loves to show up. And he took 20 shots last game against the Clippers. So a couple nights rest there in LA. Now you go and face LeBron and the Lakers. I think Sexton has a big night tonight, and I think he might get 30 real points. I would not be surprised if he had a 30-plus point game.
All right, so there you have it. We both like the Cavaliers. The total, right? LeBron sits under. I think I might look to over, though, if he doesn't. Westbrook really pushes the pace, and I think that really, as much as we kind of get on him for those plays that you can highlight and put on Twitter, where he's kind of lazy on defense, he still does make a big impact there, and I think that does decrease their defense a little bit if he's out. So definitely waiting on that news, and that's just one of those ones where it could just upset the whole apple cart when you're making your lineup, right? If he ends up sitting, or do you think that everything's just pretty priced in? Because obviously Malik Monk's been pretty popular, a Laker, and let's see, who else do we have that was getting a lot of run here from the Lakers?
The betting line has to assume that LeBron is playing, right? 7.5. Opened at what, 8.5? So yeah, I think
I think that's normal money. I mean, I think everybody, because usually people will bet early, take the points, and then the money, the public comes in right before they tip. I just think I think people just think that's wrong. I think people are down to fade the Lakers, and there's also just a little bit of a Lakers tax because they are the most popular team in the NBA, right? So a Friday night,
Yeah.
a little more action there. So yeah, that'll be interesting. So it'd be interesting to see, for members of RunPureSports.com, when we're watching the final countdown and we finally get all this news, we can make all these lineups and talk about all these players, and everything can drastically shift with the Jokic and the LeBron James news. You want to give them a quick core, and then we will go ahead and give out some best bets?
Here's what we're going to do, though.
Okay.
We did this last time. We joint made a core. You did 2 plays. I did 2 plays. That's how we got to do it. What'd you win last Friday? 5K?
Yeah, 4,500. It was pretty sweet.
4,500. There we go. Yeah. Let's do it again. I had a good night too. So I had a sweat for that. I think I finished 5th. So it was a really good night. Mm-hmm. Let's do it again. You want to start us off?
Yeah, why don't I start us off with a guy that we talked about just setting the pace, and I don't know why his price went down because we know that Porzingis is out, right? That's already ruled in. So I'll go ahead and take Jaylen Bronson there. He's only 4,800. I think it's a great way to start.
All right, I'm going Jonas Valanciunas, 8,500, right there in the center spot. Right. I think we need a piece though from this Nets Pacers game as well. I think that's going to be so it's what do you think, Sabonis or KD? I don't know going this route. I don't think we can play them both. I think it's one or the other.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the interesting thing with and you don't have to stack a game like you there's other pieces there on the Pacers side to where you don't. I mean, I do think Sabonis has a big game, but you don't have to like stack them. If you go KD, you could always go like Miles Turner or TJ McConnell or Chris Duarte. So
let's go a little cheaper and let's go a little different. Let's take Sabonis here. We should get the increased usage. We don't even know about the LeVert news, but like I said, I think he only plays 25 of the 48 minutes regardless, and that gives us an extra 1,000 to fill out our lineup, so we don't have to just put a bunch of 3,300 guys in there. So let's go Sabonis number 3, and then you can finish us off.
I'm going to finish this off with, and this is a tournament. This is a tournament core.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Colin Sexton, playing off that 30 real points for, let's say, over 43 DraftKings points tonight for Colin Sexton, 6,500. I think he gets it done. That build right there leaves you with 5,200 per position. I think it's one that actually looks really good. It looks really good in tournaments. There's a lot of different routes you can go. I mean, you could go, if you want a piece from that Nets game, you could just go Bruce Brown, run it back, or Joe Harris. They need to get him going. I mean, we know this pace. We know there's going to be points in that game. Joe Harris is a guy that, they're starting double-digit shot attempts last 2 games. Give that guy double-digit shot attempts in 11 3-point attempts or the last 2 games, he's going to start knocking them down, and he's only 4,500. So I like KD, I like Harden, but you don't have to force it if all the other pieces in your lineup get there.
Yeah, all right. So let's see. We went Sexton, Sabonis, Valanciunas, and then, of course, Jaylen Bronson, right?
Yep.
That sounds like a pretty good one. Hopefully we'll have another fun night. And on the betting side, let's give them some winners to root in. Old school style, just root for the team to win or lose, or a lot of points or very little points. Side total prop, what's your favorite best bet of the day, AP?
Let's go with the Clippers, Blazers, overs.
All right, that's in at 223. So Clippers, Blazers over 223. I made a lot of bets so far today. I think my favorite one, however, I'll take the Pacers plus 8.5. I think that plays into our narrative that we're going to use some players from that game. Of course, when we do that, we want it to be a close game. And these are 2 teams both finding their way. And I think, the Pacers are the Nets are kind of lucky to play a team that's still finding its way as well, rather than like the Heat that came in, pretty much, full cylinders blast, ready to go. So I like the Pacers here plus 8.5. I think they keep it close, and we'll see how that goes. So we like the Clippers over and the Pacers plus 8.5. AP, do you want to let them know what's going on over at runpuresports.com this weekend for the content?
Yeah, another NFL slate. It looks really good. I just spent about a lot of time breaking that down today. The NBA content all throughout the weekend, even on Halloween, which is Sunday. Because I got to take my kids trick or treating. They got a buddy group at 6, so I got to get all my stuff in and up before we go to that. So Sunday is going to be an absolute grind, but I love it. So it is what it is. Yeah, we got UFC. The card looks good. We got NASCAR. We got PGA showdown slates. College football. College basketball is going to be starting here soon too. So every single sport, as long as it's on DraftKings, FanDuel, we cover it. RPS Heater 25 is the current promo code that we have going on. Come check us out. We've been NBA. I mean, we've been crushing NBA. So it's a really fun start. I feel like we have a really good read on things right now from a fantasy standpoint. Glaucoma crushed it. His core. Someone used it in the I think it's $10 or $15 on FanDuel. Took down 100K. Yeah, 100K last night, and he lapped the field. I mean, he by 15 points. Yeah. Just unreal. Like just crazy stuff. So tonight's going to be another good night too. So I feel really good about it.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, and so much fun last week. Hopefully we can even find 10% of that success, and I expect it on the bet side as well with all our leans.
So we talked about it last time. What's the whiskey of choice tonight when we're sweating the DFS tournament lineups down the stretch? What are you going to be drinking?
Because I expect to be doing well and in a celebratory mood, I'll go with the Glenfiddich 15. It's got the lighter bottle.
I like it.
And that's the one I bring out for special occasions. So, I know you do it really well with the Gentleman's Play of the Day there on the Hardwood Show. But, for me, the 15's the nice. Maybe if I take down a couple more tournaments, I'll be sipping on an 18 in a couple weeks when we do the show.
There what are you going to be drinking? I like it. I just picked up a bottle of Maker's Private Reserve, so I'm always kind of a sucker for Maker's, and it's a really smooth whiskey, and I just like to put it on ice and sip on it.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be enjoying that as we're watching our lineups just continue to run up the leaderboard. So thank you for joining me. Remember, guys, head on over to runpuresports.com. You can use the promo code GETBETS as well. That allows you to become a member of the Bet Side free for the first month, and then you'll have an idea of everything that we have to offer. I say it every day on the show, but it is the best bang for your buck in sports gambling and daily fantasy information. If you're only betting $5 a game, just keep watching the show and enjoying it. But $50 a game or more, you're not missing out by just basically putting one unit down to become a member and just get all the information. Join the Discord, join the conversation. We have so much fun on both sides in the Discord. Your guys' Discord is popping. We're a little more down to business in ours, and we can have some lulls, but we have so much fun on both sides. So please check us out, become a member. We'll see you next week. Run